If we turn our backs and spit in his face, is God still gonna bless the USA?
A man from Illinois decided to travel to Wisconsin to go duck hunting. He shot and dropped a bird, but it fell into a farmer's field on the other side of the fence. As he climbed over the wall, the farmer drove up on his tractor and asked what was going on. The hunter said, "I shot a duck and I'm retrieving it." The old farmer replied, "This is my property and you're not coming over here." After arguing, the two decided to settle the disagreement with the Wisconsin 3-kick rule. They would take turns kicking each other 3 times until one gave up. The farmer went first and kicked his work boot into the man's shin. The man fell to his knees. The second kick went directly to his stomach, knocking the wind out of him. The farmer then landed his third kick to the side of the hunter's head. The disoriented man slowly got up and said, "Okay, you old codger, now it's my turn." To which the farmer responded, "Nah, I give up. You can have the duck." There's a time to fight, and there's a time to refrain. Greetings, Patriots. I'm Perry Greene. Welcome to God in America. One of my favorite stories of our War of Independence is that of the unsung heroine, Molly Pitcher. Her real name was Mary Ludwig Hays McCauley, and her story captures the courage, faith, and grit that shaped our nation. The name Molly Pitcher was a kind of battlefield call. Molly was a common name for women at the time, and pitcher referred to the water pitchers they carried to exhausted soldiers who were fighting under the blazing sun. Mary earned that nickname on the battlefield at Monmouth, New Jersey on June the 28th, 1778. Her husband, William Hayes, was an artilleryman in the Continental Army. That day, the heat was unbearable at over 100 degrees. Soldiers were collapsing from dehydration as cannon fire thundered across the field. Mary, who had followed her husband to war as many women did, began carrying water from a nearby spring to cool the cannons and quench the men's thirst. But then came the moment that would etch her name into history. When her husband collapsed, Mary stepped up, took his place at the cannon, and continued to fire throughout the battle. Her courage inspired the men who fought beside her. She hadn't enlisted, she simply was a patriot who refused to step back when freedom was on the line. After the war, the story of Molly Pitcher spread across the colony. Some said it was just a myth, but the record shows that Mary Ludwig Hays was real and that George Washington himself recognized her bravery, issuing her a warrant as a non-commissioned officer. From that day on, she was affectionately called Sergeant Molly. When she died in 1832, she was buried in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, beneath a monument that simply reads, "Molly Pitcher, the heroine of Monmouth." Mary's story reminds me of Judges 4 and 5, where Deborah and Jael rose to defend Israel amid fear and oppression. Deborah led with wisdom and faith. Jael struck decisively against the enemy when the moment came. Like them, Mary did what needed to be done. Scripture says in James 2, verse 17, "Faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." Molly Pitcher didn't just believe in the cause of liberty, she lived it. Her faith in what was right became visible in what she did. Think of Esther 4, verse 14, when Mordecai tells Esther, "Who knows whether you've come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Mary probably never imagined she'd stand at a cannon firing at British troops, but when the moment came, she stood her ground for such a time as this. Liberty, like faith, requires participation. It's not enough to talk about faith and freedom. We must live as free people who take responsibility by faith for preserving it. In a time when the world pressures believers to step back and remain silent, Molly Pitcher reminds us that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they act on conviction. We need a new generation of Molly Pitchers who will take their place at the cannon of conviction when others fall away. Freedom's preservation still depends on ordinary people doing extraordinary things in the power of God. Because as Galatians 5, verse 1 reminds us, "Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty by which Christ has made us free, and do not be entangled again with a yoke of bondage." Molly Pitcher stood fast. So must we. Thanks for joining us today on God in America. Until next time, let's keep the light of doing our part for liberty burning.